back up. Okay, we are officially recording now. Welcome to the show. This is the Open Your Minds podcast. I am DJ Lou with my co-host Mike.
Good morning. How's it going, people?
Awesome. And we got Dan. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. Good morning.
Sounds so corny, like, hello, how's everyone doing? Welcome to the show.
Say three interesting facts about yourself.
Yeah, well, interesting facts about me is that I'm very open-minded. And having Dan here, I think is excellent because we get to experience what law officials experience with experience of knowledge and the history of what they've been through and the ugly things that they've seen. But Dan, how long have you been a policeman?
I was a police officer for 21 years.
Wow. I was 8 when you were a cop. Unbelievable.
Did you drive in a cop car or a motorcycle?
I never touched a motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
No.
Cool.
You just don't like bikes or what?
Oh, I like them. I just didn't trust myself riding them.
Very cool. I wanted to talk about like the people that get a perspective that police are bad and police are mean. And college teacher of mine told me that a lot of people dislike the police automatically because of the interactions that they get with them. Most of the time, it's negative. Citations and things like that. You don't ever get pulled over by a cop and he's like, "Hey, here's $50 for being a good driver." It's always negative, and people get a bad perspective of that because that's all they see is red lights flashing behind them, red and blue going off. With your experience as a policeman, the horrific things that you had to witness, putting your life on the line each day, dealing with knuckleheads such as gang members, drug addicts, third-time felons, day in and day out, observing the negativity in people, do you have hope for humanity still? I asked you this before. I want to know.
Of course. I mean, I think we all have hope for humanity, but you're right about the perception of law enforcement. I'll give you a real quick story. When I was a kid, my mom used to say, there's a police officer. If you need help, go to him or her. Mm-hmm. Today, it's more like there's a police officer. If you're not good, they're going to arrest you. They're going to put you in jail.
True that.
So
That's
I think kids start off early in life with that negative perception that we are bad guys and that we're there to take your freedom away. That we're not your friend, and I think that's sad.
Very sad.
And I think it starts with your parents
Mm-hmm.
and how they interpret law enforcement or authority, and if their interpretation is that they're negative, they're going to pass that on to their kids.
Correct.
I'd like to get back to a society where we say there's a police officer, he's a good guy. If you need help, go to him or her.
Yeah, I saw a picture on Facebook and it had all the kids that have been on the news, like Michael Brown, Trayvon. Was it Trayvon?
Yeah, Trayvon.
No, somebody else that was abused. Eric Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like showing all these pictures of these guys on the floor dead or hurt or something like that. And it says, "I'll start believing in honest cops or the good cops when they start turning in the bad cops." And I was thinking, but there's more to these stories. I mean, every cop that has committed the act that they did wasn't because, not all the time, but there are some that are malicious, some that are accidental. Sometimes, accidents happen.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very dramatic moment when you're fighting a guy, wrestling him, trying to detain him, and he's not in the best shape of his life, has a heart attack or asthma attack or whatever, and dies. And people with cameras, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? So it can get out of control. But I have a lot of respect for you and the many policemen out there who put their lives on the line to protect people and have a presence of security for people. I'm one of the very few to study and prepare myself to join law enforcement. And even though I never made it into the police academy, I have the lifelong training and mindset of a law enforcement enforcer. I know what police know. With that said, there are many people out there who do not know what police know. Such ignorance on Facebook. Dan, what do you think when people say police are mean or intimidating? What do you think automatically that goes through your head when you hear that?
Well, there are times that you have to be mean and intimidating, otherwise you can't do your job. But that shouldn't be the overall perception of what a police officer is.
Can you break down the extensive training that they go through to be that certain way? Because in my mind, when I see policemen that are tough looking or really straightforward, they're trained a certain way to deal with a certain amount of people. We're talking like felons. We're talking about criminals that come out of prison with muscles and tattoos everywhere. police have to be just as tough. You know, it's like a pit bull fighting a pit bull. You got to train them the right way, otherwise they're going to get their ass kicked. You know.
Absolutely.
So that's my whole agenda.
Yeah, I think that the general public, they have this bad perception, and I blame a lot of it on the media. I blame it on music, and again, the parents. I mean, look at a lot of parents these days. A lot of males are incarcerated. A lot of people are visiting their fathers, so that's kind of like the lifestyle they see.
Right.
It's all. The thing is, it's so complex. I mean, it could happen anywhere. But again, back to the police. I mean, they got to worry about school shootings. They got to worry about pedophiles, about rapists, about just so many things. And people just kind of forget that, and they just like, oh, this guy's gonna harass me. He's gonna give me a ticket. It's like, well, are your front windows tinted? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's against the law. Are your tags up to date?
If they're limo tinted, you can have your windows tinted. They just can't be like limo where they can't see inside. The police have to be able to see inside.
In California, you can't have your front windows tinted at all.
Is that right, Steve?
That's true.
Dan?
Yeah.
So why do police wait and use radar guns to give speeding tickets?
Why do they use radar guns?
Yeah, like why sit there and wait for people that speed? I mean, this is a silly question because obviously because you don't want someone speeding and slamming into somebody. But the reason why I say that is because I'm thinking about the way they make these cars. We want to govern everybody. We want to set rules. Why make a car to go over 65 miles per hour?
Well, which question you want me to answer? As far as the radar is concerned, it's just another tool that police officers can use. Personally, I was not a big radar fan. I felt that the best way to find a speeder is to do what we call clock them, which means you get behind them at a distance and you equal their speed and you determine how fast they're going. A little more challenging than using a radar gun.
Right.
But it's just another tool that we have in our, I don't want to say arsenal. That might sound negative, but it's another tool that we have.
Sounds like military.
Speed kills, and I think we have records that indicate that speed kills.
Right.
And today, speed and distracted driving kills.
Yeah.
So if you're going 20 miles over the speed limit and you're on your cell or you're texting, I mean, I don't know what the stats are now that I'm out of law enforcement, but they're huge. The number of accidents that we have involving distracted driving.
I want to just bring something up really quick because there was recently in Calabasas a police officer who was on duty. He was on his laptop driving, accidentally hit somebody in the bike lane who was in the bike lane. He was actually one of the main guys with Napster. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Napster, but yeah. So he hits the guy unfortunately dies, and they're not going to prosecute him. They're saying that I just wanted to get your input. When a police officer is on his phone or on the laptop driving, they're considered that they're working, so they can't be charged for any criminal charge. I'm guessing. Is that correct?
It's legal. I know it's legal for them to talk on their cell phone.
Okay.
I'm not sure about. On their computer. I didn't have a computer in the place that I worked, but it is legal for them to talk on their cell phone.
Okay.
They have to be able to communicate in a number of different ways.
Correct.
And they can't put something in their ear because their radio is in their other ear. So if they put a cell phone in one ear, their radio in the other ear, then they can't hear. So that's why it's legal for police officers to talk on their cell phone. But, don't get me wrong. If you're distracted while you're driving as a police officer, it's the same. The consequences can be the same as anybody else.
I guess what he's saying is that why is there like a double standard? Meaning you can be on the laptop. It's a distraction because we see these posts on Facebook where it says we can't use our phone because it's a distraction. Yeah, you're using a laptop. You're controlling radios. You have other equipment that you're using that's not keeping your hands on the wheels, both hands on the wheels, which is a requirement when you're driving during the DMV test. They want you to have both hands on the wheel.
Right.
So I guess he's trying to say there's a double standard, and I see a lot of that on Facebook. The posts of people who are confused about why police get privileges that others don't get.
Well, that's why I'm trying to clarify that.
Yeah.
Clarify that is that it is a privilege, but it's a necessary privilege. In today's day and age, you have to communicate in a lot of different ways. The radio, the old radio that you talked into as a police officer, is kind of antiquated now. Very little communication is done over the radio now. It's done over the computer terminal. So
you mean like the old school radios, something like this? Why does it sound so horrible? I mean, was it like that back in the day? It was hard to hear people?
Sometimes it is that bad.
Okay, cool. Another question I wanted to ask you. Do you think everyone should be entitled to a firearm? Check in a minute.
Not everyone. not every single person on the
Criminals.
face of the
I
earth.
agree with that.
Criminals
I
obviously
agree.
do not deserve to have a gun in their hands.
Well, mentally ill people probably shouldn't. People that are unstable probably shouldn't.
Right.
Criminals definitely shouldn't. There's a lot of people that probably should not be carrying a firearm. But I do believe in the right to bear arms. I mean, that's one of the tenets of our society, of our Constitution, is the right to bear arms. And I believe that you should be able to, given the proper background, given the proper training on how to use that
Yeah.
firearm.
I mean, sometimes, I don't know what the response is, what the time it takes to place the call and somebody to actually show up. I know a lot of times when I'm calling a certain police department, they're like, anybody hurt? No, please hold.
Yeah.
It's just straight like, and I could get it, they got to prioritize, if there's shootings and, there's got to be priorities. I understand that. But, yeah, it's just, it's interesting to see.
Did you hear about this?
What is it?
The concealed weapons permits nearly doubled in Orange County.
Yeah, they recently changed the law on that. I believe back in the day, I don't know if Mike Corona was still in power as sheriff, but they were giving it just to like their friends and family members, and now they kind of opened it up. The requirements are pretty strict, but yeah, I was reading about that.
This is a relaxed standard. The number of licenses to carry is close to doubling, and thousands more are waiting for approval.
Yeah, and there's two separate issues: concealed weapons permit and the right to bear arms.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
One is you have the right to bear arms in your own home. The other is you have a right to carry a concealed weapon out in public. That creates a whole different problem for law enforcement.
It could create vigilantes, maybe.
Well, you can assume when you go to somebody's house that there might be some firearms there. That's a safe assumption. So you take the proper procedures when you go to somebody's house that there might be a firearm in the house. Now, if everybody might be carrying a weapon, we assume as police officers, we assume everybody's carrying a weapon anyway until we prove otherwise.
Because you have to make sure that your life is safe first.
Well, our life and the life of the people around us that we're sworn to protect.
Right.
But again, if you're of your right mind and you have a concealed weapon permit, there's certain responsibilities that go with that.
Right.
If you are stopped by a police officer, you need to let them know that you're carrying a gun.
Yeah.
Right away, because
Right away,
they
because
see that and it's.
Yeah, exactly.
It could change real quick.
What about assault weapons?
Again, if people want to have those in their homes, I don't have a problem with that. Again, you should be backgrounded, and they should only be going to people who are deemed responsible to have them.
What about these gun shows? I've seen some documentaries where people go undercover, and ex-felons, all kinds of people just coming up on, weapons that they shouldn't have. Are they going to, the NRA is huge on, guns, obviously. I could see, the assault things with the, what was it? Was it in Hollywood where the bank robbers? And
yeah.
They were in the streets, and that was one turning point where wow, these guys have better firepower than the police department does, and how do you take these guys out with armored vests and everything, right? So I could see, just recently, I want to get your view on this. The Compton School Police was allowed to carry AR-15s. They're obviously in their car, but that's kind of scary, where you're investing money and thousands of dollars into weapons and not books or quality teachers. I just want to get your take on that.
Well, in the department I worked for, we carried AR-15s after the fact, after that robbery that you were talking
Correct.
about. And that was just to make us equal to what the criminals had.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with police officers carrying those weapons in their vehicle.
Yeah.
When you're met with that kind of firepower, that's what you have to return with. And we
Correct.
saw that in that Hollywood robbery.
Exactly.
Law enforcement was shooting with, it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were shooting with
9
handguns,
millimeters.
and it was doing nothing.
Right. Those guys
It
were
was bouncing off of them.
How long were they standing up shooting at people?
Almost an hour, I think.
And the law enforcement at that time, during that incident, they had to go to a nearby gun store and borrow some automatic weapons to be able to counter the firepower that they faced.
So people shouldn't be concerned that we're trying to militarize our police, right? It's
God, that was just the most ridiculous thing that I heard on news lately about.
Well, the whole thing with Ferguson, I think, kind of sparked that, I want to say. But, people, they allow drones in our skies now. LAPD, they're meeting a lot of resistance from neighborhoods in the area, saying, hey, we don't want drones in our skies. And actually, the police department was secretly flying drones in real time over Compton and without anybody knowing. So there's a privacy issue. I can see that, but at the same time, it's another tool in the arsenal to help you, kind of like a radar gun. You know what I mean? So I could understand if it could prevent crime, but people are like, oh, it's Big Brother, trying to come into my everyday life.
How do you feel about the NSA drones, people checking on the internet for our emails and things like
Facebook.
Oh God, that's a huge issue, and
how do you personally feel about it, though? Just your opinion.
Personally, I think it's a violation of our rights.
Beautiful.
I like that. Could we get an applause?
Go on.
No, it's a violation of our rights, and I think the government can go too far at times with some of their policies.
It's necessary with some people. Let's not get it twisted. There are some isolated incidents where you do need this. I used to be really against it, but I want to blame music. I was immature. I was in my teens. But now that I've grown up, and it's funny, the first people that yell, F the police, and then they're calling them when, they need help. So
of course.
Kind of of course.
And you get used to that when you're a cop.
Yeah.
You're right. One guy will flip you off, and then 5 minutes later he's calling for help.
Hey, sorry about that. Looking at both sides of the scale, this isn't just a horrible thing, the drones in the sky, oh my God. Hey, these things could help us find people like terrorists that are trying to come in here and destroy
ISIS.
us. So I look at both scales, and I try to stay neutral. I'm just not sure how you really feel about it. You say it's against our rights, but when it comes down to saving people's lives, it has its pluses.
Well, when I say it's a violation of our rights, I agree that it needs to be used in a very limited basis. I think there's a proper use for all those tools. If you're talking about fighting terrorism, in my opinion, if you're a terrorist, you're not an American citizen anyway, so you're not entitled to the rights that we have here in America.
Right.
I don't care if you are an American citizen. Once you become a terrorist, I think you should lose those rights as a citizen anyway.
Definitely.
So if we're using them against terrorists, against foreign enemies, I don't have a problem with it, even if it's within the United States.
And there's a lot of homegrown terror too, terror groups. You have like the KKK, you have the bombers from Boston Marathon. There's a lot of homegrown terrorists. Gangs are terrorists. They terrorize the streets. But I understand what you mean.
But make no mistake about it, homegrown, they're still terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are.
Domestic terrorists.
Exactly.
Call them what you want. They're still terrorists. And I feel that they're once they become a terrorist, their rights as a U.S. citizen no longer exist, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And that's why, and I don't mean to get off onto another subject, but when we're bringing terrorists in from another country and trying them in our courts, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. Because now they're entitled, and I use that word heavily, entitled to all the rights of an American citizen. They're not American citizens.
But if they're born here, they do deserve some sort of due process, don't you think? Because they could be wrongly convicted. Like, back in the day when people were convicted, they served 20 years. Then they go through DNA tests and are set free because they were found not guilty.
Does a person that fought in a foreign country in a war, who's been brought to the United States, deserve the rights of an American citizen? I say no.
If they're not American.
Like I just said before, my opinion, and it's not a fact,
right.
But my opinion is if they're a terrorist and they go and they train in another country and come back here and want to do harm to us, as far as I'm concerned, not the courts, but as far as I'm concerned, they lose those rights.
I want to touch on a few things that you're saying there, because there were actually a lot of gang members that were going out to war zones, getting all the training, and they're coming back and showing all their homeboys, all their homies, like, yo, look what I found, and they're showing them the tactics, they're showing the videos, they're going like, it's a crazy thing that people have to deal with. And not only that, goes back to the parents, we're living in a day and age where kids are growing up playing Grand Theft Auto 5. The whole point of this game, if you're bored, is you go around, raise havoc, start shooting people, and all the cops come up. You have like 5 stars, you're trying to get as many stars as possible, and it's crazy. You're a cop killer. It's crazy. These little kids are 5 years old, 4 years old, like their brains are developing. We've touched on this before. they're watching the movies. A lot of the movies portray cops, I think, in a negative way. I mean, you have a lot of these gangster movies like American Me, Blood In, Blood Out, Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, and they still to this day repeat those movies nonstop on like TNT. And I mean, it's just showing stereotypes, but at the same time, I think it just goes and reinforces people to have this prejudgment of police officers.
So in your opinion, should we, if you had the power right now, Dan, to say, hey, we need to monitor people, or we need to give people their space, but monitor them a little bit, a tiny bit, which people won't do, they'll abuse their privilege, what would you say would be the final determination on what we should do?
I think we should be able to monitor those that need to be monitored.
Interesting.
I mean, when you're, would they check 1 billion emails or something like that?
I don't know, man.
I mean,
probably, yeah.
Of those billion, how many was it really necessary to check 1 billion emails?
Probably
and I don't
not.
have the answer to that. I wasn't part of that investigation. I don't know. It just sounds excessive.
Yeah,
to
but
me.
then again, I mean, look, there's prisoners right now. I heard Charles Manson had a cell phone. I mean, there's cell phones in the prisons. I mean, the Mexican mafia is running stuff behind closed doors. Like they run the streets. Like there's so much going on in the prison. It's just so complex. It's so interconnected, with the prison overcrowded, the street gangs. It's just, I feel like there's just so much going on that people just fail to see, or they just don't want to hear about it, I think.
Well, where do you think a lot of people learn their tactics?
In prison.
In prison.
Yeah. And a lot of these gangsters, they want to go there. I was watching a documentary yesterday, and this guy was about to be released, getting his stuff ready to go. And, the what's huge there is the race war, Mexicans and blacks. He saw a Mexican playing dominoes with 3 black guys, and he's about to be released, goes back to his cell, gets a razor, comes back, and just starts slicing this guy up. And the officer, he asked him, he's like, why'd you do this? He's like, oh, because I hope it'll bring me up in rank with the Sureños and the gang. And it's just this mentality is what people are not understanding. It's like these people have nothing really to lose, and they consider their gangs their family, and they're willing to die for that,
Interesting. Crazy stuff.
I think what it boils down to is, I want to, and I think we all want to trust our government.
Oh, of course.
And trust that when they're using these tools, that they're using them properly. And I think
I agree.
Somewhere along the way, we've lost a lot of that trust.
9/11.
And that needs to be rebuilt.
But overall, like Benjamin Franklin said, the quote, those who surrender freedom for security will not have, nor do they deserve either. Do we think that it's important to keep our freedom? You got to make a decision. And I'm not talking about liberal, because I don't even really know what that word means, because it's so bastardized of what it really means.
Exactly.
I don't understand. But did you ever have to deal with these angry anti-cop people, and does it wear down on you?
Of course. I mean, it didn't wear down on me, but people, I guess they refer to themselves as, and this was, 30 years ago, they refer to themselves as constitutionalists or something. I think there's a different meaning for it today, but these are the people that I know my rights. You can't do this, you can't do that, and we get a lot of that.
They often try to test you or test your knowledge.
Yeah, and really, I mean, not that we're experts on every single law that's ever written, but what it boils down to is everybody knows what's right and what's wrong. And
I disagree. I don't think I think it's in our own minds. Like, I know people who think it's right to go out and beat up people, stupid things like that.
I don't think they actually, if you really dug deep into their mind, I think they know that it's wrong to do that.
Even when you're
they may have convinced themselves that it's okay.
Maybe
to do
their parents, because it's all about development.
Whatever.
I look at it like computers. The software that's put into us is determined by the people that we are developed with by.
No doubt, I agree. I said that in the beginning about parents, and you were mentioning these games that kids play. Well, who buys them?
The parents. And they have these labels. It says MA for mature. You go, 5-year-old son.
Yeah, here, go play this game where you're killing people.
It's crazy. I'm really against that.
And then the other side of that is when they're done playing the game, they can hit reset, and everybody wakes up and everybody's alive, and we play it all over again.
And they become desensitized to what a gun could really do.
Think about the little kids that see that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, development. Like, you believe that's real, because it looks so real nowadays.
Yeah, and not only that. I mean, if you watch a lot of these rap videos or all kinds of different music, I don't want to, but we'll speak about rap just because it's really negative against the cops. Sex, crime, violence. They glorify all of this stuff. Actually, the FBI in '89, I believe, sent a letter because they wanted NWA to not be able to release their album because they said that it would create that it encourages violence and disrespect of law enforcement officers. That goes hand in hand with Ice-T when he released that song "Cop Killer," and people were boycotting Time Warner. And
did you ever hear that song?
His sales went through the roof.
Dan, have you ever heard that song "Cop Killer"?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think about it?
No, I was a cop at the time, so obviously I didn't like it.
Silliness. Let's talk about the private prisons then, if you want to get into the whole, gangster rap stuff, because I have this weird conspiracy theory that, coincidentally, that gangster rap music came out at the same time when privatized prisons became to blossom. And right now, the U.S. prison population is 2.4 million, the highest in the world. We have the most incarcerated people on the planet. Mm-hmm. Talk about land of the free, right?
1 out of 100.
That's more than quadrupled since 1980. And more than 1 out of 100 American adults are behind bars. The most serious charge against them, 51% of those people,
drugs.
Inmates as drug offenders, yes. Should we legalize drugs, Dan? I'm throwing bullets at you. Come on.
Oh, you're asking the wrong guy about that.
Just what's your opinion?
Of course you should not legalize drugs.
Marijuana?
I'm probably going to lose that battle in my lifetime. Having been a former cop, I still look at marijuana as an illegal drug. But I'm sure that in the next 10 years or less, it's going to be legalized in most of the United States, certainly in California.
I agree.
So, that's a battle that, I've been fighting for 30 years, but I'm probably going to lose that battle. But I don't want the government to legalize it just for monetary reasons, just because it's going to bring, $1 billion in sales tax or whatever. There's still going to be a black market for marijuana and for any drug.
Interesting.
So you're not, I don't know what problem you're solving by legalizing it.
Well, it's the statistics say that people are in cages for this medicine that I call medicine, because marijuana to me it helps people eat it. People that have cancer that can't eat, it helps them medicinal purpose wise. To me, it's like alcohol. You can do a certain amount and you become at a certain level where you cannot function properly, I think, in my experience. But I don't have a problem with it because you can look at Colorado, how much they blossom, and the crime rate has went down because of legalizing marijuana. Marijuana, that is, not cocaine, not these heavy methamphetamine, these devil-like drugs. I'm talking about a natural plant.
I think the bigger problem is prescription pills. The opiates is a bigger problem than marijuana.
Yes,
That's
sir.
just personally. I think it's ridiculous that the city of Santa Ana is investing $500,000 on raiding collectives and pot clubs. If they want to regulate them, I get it. But the people of California have already voted. Hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to do. Again, I do see the negative effects. So I'm rolling down Main Street and I see all these little green collective spots, and the children start asking, hey, what's that? Or people don't respect, and they're smoking a blunt or a joint walking down the street. It smells, the potency. What's
the difference between that and a cigarette, though? Cigarettes give you cancer. Secondhand smoke.
Well, that's why it's so complex. It's very complex. But I do believe, hey, you know what? You have a freedom. I don't know. I view heroin and cocaine very differently. I've never tried either of them. Marijuana, I've made lots of friends smoking marijuana, which is quite awesome. And I'm talking about all kinds of races, every race, every religion, every type of person, lawyers, criminals, everybody smokes this stuff. I've actually helped people. I've seen people where they're just coming in with stories, and I'm just like, whoa. He's like, yeah, they want to just give me pills. They want to just give me Vicodin. He's all, this helps me better.
They have horrible side effects.
But on the flip side, I've seen people where they start stealing, or they're selling everything just to buy a little sack of marijuana. So there is a problem. But again, I think it's too easy in California to get a recommendation from a doctor. I think these young kids shouldn't be smoking this stuff.
Dude, it's their preference, it's their body. As long as they're not bothering anybody, I don't see the problem with it. It helps people function. Some people actually.
But I'm talking about the young kids that live with mom and dad.
Yeah. If you're underage, money, it should be like alcohol. You got to be 21 years old. But why put people in a cage for this? It's crazy. Dan, what do you know about the privatized prisons? Do you know any history on that? Can I break some down to you real quick?
Go ahead, because I'm not super familiar.
Yeah, in the 1980s, privatized prisons, also known as for-profit jails, is where individuals that went to jail run by third party contracted by a government agency. And the problem with these huge third party tycoons is situations like in 2008 when the Kids for Cash scandal unfolded over judicial kickbacks at the Luzerne County Court in Pennsylvania. 2 judges, I don't want to say their names, but they were accused of accepting money from two private for-profit juvenile facilities in return for contracting them with the facility and imposing harsh sentences for juveniles brought before the courts to increase the number of inmates in the detention center.
I heard they were even locking them up just for like jaywalking.
Yeah. An
for
email.
Like ridiculous.
An
things.
example is this: the sentencing is children who they mocked their principal on MySpace, and they were sentenced to go to these jails.
They're terrorists.
Trespassing in a vacant building, shoplifting DVDs at Walmart. Both judges did plead guilty. Pretty crazy stuff, right? So yeah, I mean, back to the whole gangster rap thing, though. I really feel like I hate gangster rap. By the way, I'm a musician. I don't like calling myself a rapper because rapping has a bad name to it. It's been bastardized. My message is to encourage people to educate themselves, to be aware, conscious. And when I hear gangster rap music, I think of automatically a trap. I see people going in cages, in and out. They're not able to function in society, so they're going right back in. What is your opinion on the gangster rappers? Do you think we'll ever straighten this situation out? Is it too big of a mess to clean up?
It probably is. It's gonna, because what it's gonna boil down to is they're gonna, whoever's writing those songs, singing those songs, is gonna claim that it's a violation of their First Amendment right, freedom of speech.
That's right.
And I don't ever want to lose that right.
Right. Me either.
So,
Me either.
How do you stop it? What do you do to stop it?
I think
if you make it illegal, then you're just freedom of speech is out the window.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But
I think we should go back to censorship. Like back in the day, they had the FCC. When television was censored, radio was censored. You couldn't say. Now you can say "bitch" on radio.
You say a lot of things.
Slowly but surely, words are sliding in.
My only question to that is, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
I mean, once you start allowing censorship, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
Drawing the line as in what you can say, what you can't.
Well, what if somebody doesn't like this program? Then they can censor you.
Exactly.
Well, it's cursing. We know what cursing is. We all know what that is.
But
we shouldn't be able to curse on the radio. We shouldn't be able to use subliminal messages like,
I'll counter that with that's why they have the parental advisory stickers on it. Again, a lot of the blame is on the parents.
Yes.
But sometimes they're not there.
And I want to make a recommendation because I feel like one day I will be a powerful leader. Yes, in my little magical mind, I can do this. But how can we help the next generation of children from becoming prisoners? Seriously, about the parents. Parents must take responsibility. If they cannot control the child after attempts of discipline, parents should emancipate themselves from children. Yeah, that's a children thing, right? But no, parents, they need to go to the courts. We got to make some rule where they can say, I try disciplining my kid. This kid will not cooperate with me. I know it's my responsibility, but I fear for my safety. You guys are more than welcome to take him to jail because I cannot deal with it. He's getting fines. He's damaging property. I can't afford it. He's on probation and I have to pay restitutions. Get me out of this, Your Honor. Boom. All right, cool. Now the kid's emancipated. You know what? If he can't cooperate in society, he'll end up another victim of these jails. But that's my solution, is that parents have to do their job. Otherwise, they should be penalized for the child's mistake. More and more punishments, more fines, and they should get the picture.
But that's just going to create a huge burden that's already huge on taxpayers. It's $48,000 per inmate in California. We spend $23,000 on a student. This is ridiculous. This is just, it's crazy the amount of money that is getting put into this. I'm against private prisons. I think that's horrible. I don't know. I think it's just a huge, complex issue. But at the end of the day, I'm for freedom of speech. If you want to say fuck the police, go ahead. You should be able to say that. I'm not saying little kids should be able to hear it. But hey, you know what? If you're mature, you're 18. Okay, you could, guess what? You could buy cigarettes. Hey, you're 21. Guess what? You could drink. That's why we have certain laws. It's not.
There should be a level of respect, though.
There should be.
That's another question I want to ask Dan.
But Lou, there isn't going to be that. You can't expect everybody to be the same.
But at least we can, on a judgment level, when the judge sees the information at the police, do you think police, Dan, should wear camcorders?
Yeah.
Right?
I do. We did.
It can get both perspectives of both sides of the story.
I think it protects the officer more than anything else.
Right?
Correct.
I don't know how many times I was a supervisor. I don't know how many times I was able to prevent a complaint simply by telling the complainant that I'll review the tape. And they're like, and they say, huh?
What tape?
And I go, well, all of our officers are equipped with video recorders and audio recorders. I will review that, and if what you said is true, we will take the appropriate action. And then 5 minutes later, they're withdrawing their complaint.
Yeah, right.
So,
Exactly.
you know, yeah, I and personally, it saved me a number of times as well about people saying it happened this way, and I said, okay, let's look at the video.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it
That's-
didn't happen that way.
And it also gives the court, when they do go to the trial or whatever they're doing, the perspective of what happened, because the behavior of people, you know, they're very, they double talk, you know, they play a role, you know,
Yeah.
like this, there's a cop right
They're the
here, I know
victim.
my rights,
They're the victim.
F you, you're scaring me with your gun, back away. And not that I'm always for the police, I am the man of the people, I stand with the people, but we have to respect the people that put their lives on the line each and every day. The shit that they see from people that have been dead bodies, by the way, kids that have just been molested, people that have just been robbed, the things that they got to see every day. Then go home, go to sleep, wake up, go back and do it
and
again.
function normally. Yeah, that is crazy.
Human beings, to me, are not supposed to see that kind of stuff. I mean, here in America, we're conditioned to be like, you know, relaxed and live a comfortable life. The policemen, they see the worst things ever, and they gotta fit into society. These people are disturbed. They gotta see the worst things. They become desensitized. And I remember talking to a cop, and I'm not gonna put his name out, but he said, you know, he would go to a call and there would be a dead body and he would laugh, and I'm like, really? He's like, dude, like I'm sick, like I'm laughing because there's no other way for me to release, like it's the only way I can vent. I'm like, wow, that's weird stuff, man. But he probably seen it 1,000 times, you know. I mean, the dude, you see these things and you go home and your kids, you know, want to play and stuff, and you're just like disturbed. How did you cope with that, Dan?
Yeah, as long as you're not laughing in front of the family members.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
You got to understand when you know, laugh. Most of the time, when you make light of something like that, it's behind closed doors. It's with other cops.
Yeah,
And it's just it's a coping mechanism.
because you guys see some wicked stuff.
Well, the last thing that you want to do is walk into a call and there's dead bodies or a dead body and you start crying. I mean, you know, you're supposed to be the rock. You're supposed to be the one that people can come to
look
for
up
comfort.
to.
So, you know, we deal with it, and then later on we handle it and deal with it the way that we know how. And sometimes it's sick humor, sometimes it's laughing, but we're not laughing at the person that died. We're just dealing and coping with what our own. It's a mechanism for us to cope.
Yeah.
And you know, I've told the story many times. I had a ride along with me one time, and you know, we went to a dead body call. He obviously wasn't allowed to go in, but you know, afterwards when all the guys when we were talking, you know, we were making light of it and kind of making some jokes, and the guy filed a complaint against us
Wow.
because he didn't understand what we were doing.
Yeah.
And when I was able to explain to him later the reason for it, he withdrew his complaint. But it taught me a lesson about understanding what other people are seeing from the outside when we're doing our job or trying to cope with our job.
And
It's not normal.
I want to touch back to the camera again. When I think reality TV, I think the show Cops, because I think they like set the standard for reality TV. And I was just reading an article recently. In the span of their show, recently they raided some guy's house. He came out shooting and actually killed one of the people from the show. And this is the first time that's ever happened. And that's unfortunate. But I remember watching Cops, and one thing I noticed, it seemed like I don't know, just a lot of these people like you say, people know good from right. I mean, right from wrong, good from right from wrong. But if you go work customer service, like common sense, just I feel doesn't exist. Like that, I hate referring to it's common sense because a lot of people are just clueless. But it seems like a lot of people on this show, I mean, it speaks for itself. You know, you can't deny the video, you can't deny the audio. And I just want to touch on this Ferguson issue real quick. Didn't he have a dash cam? Because he's saying there was a struggle, so it should have wouldn't they release that? Or how long would it take for something to be released? Or do the police not want to release stuff? Or how does that go about?
Can we break it down real quick, though, so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Michael Brown, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And Darren Wilson, Michael Brown had no criminal history, which was surprising. And Darren Wilson was 3 years with the department. And he was a 5-year veteran. Neither one of them had no disciplinary. He had no disciplinary history. Darren did and did not.
He had gotten someone an award, no? Like prior, like the year before?
Not the article that I read, but from my take, Michael Brown, he robbed a liquor store, which shows
Allegedly.
You don't think that video is him?
The own store owner, his lawyer said, I had never seen that guy before. I don't think it was Michael Brown. That's coming from the guy that was pushed in the video. So
Right.
It's allegedly. It's
And what
not
was
really-
weird was they said a gunshot from the inside of the police vehicle went off and hit Michael Brown, who was shot 6 times. But the witnesses say, oh, it was like 12 times and all this, you know. And they said Brown charged at Wilson, and then more shots were fired. But what was the question again? So we get the whole thing.
Wouldn't there be like a dash cam or some audio? And if it was, would the police eventually release it, or would they can they keep that classified? I guess is my question. Or how do you go when the public is demanding? You know, obviously you know that incited some riots, which I don't agree with. I think violence, peaceful protest is good, but you know you're always going to get the troublemakers and you're going to have the riots. But as far as like, you know, you have the National Guard coming in. I mean, that's pretty big. You have tanks on American soil. You have police that look like military. I mean, this raises huge concerns for me because I've been talking about police becoming more militarized. I'm scared of drones personally. I don't like them. When I think of a drone is killing a terrorist in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East. But as far as like the getting a hold of any tape or audio, how does the police handle that usually?
Well, there's about 800 issues in this one issue.
Okay. Just a little bit.
While it's on my mind, first of all, the drone thing, with law enforcement using drones, they're going to be unarmed drones.
Yeah.
They're for surveillance only. So you're not going to have a drone blowing somebody up if it's used by law enforcement.
What if you're naked in your backyard? You know, that's the privacy of your home. Like,
No, I'm not even questioning the privacy part of it. I'm just simply saying.
Oh yeah. No, I understand they wouldn't be armed. Yeah.
But anyway, that's off the subject.
There we go.
Back to Michael Brown, though.
Yeah, I mean, God, that brings up all kinds of different topics of conversation. But
Hey, here's some video right here. Is this it?
Oh,
no
what?
way.
Is that it? Is that you? No.
Eyewitness to shooting. Wow. Let me put the audio up here.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a new video. The video I seen where his body.
You and I talked earlier about after and the dad. Is this we believe this is the father in the video. So there's a police officer walking up here that you're looking at.
Yeah, okay.
And then
This is
father,
after
we
the
believe he's
fact.
going
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
it's
side of
after.
Florida.
Okay.
That's my son. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Okay, the whole thing about the Michael Brown incident, all the facts aren't in yet, and I want to throw this out at you guys. There was a lot of hysterica after all this happened, but after other facts started coming out, or not facts, but after all other information started coming out about what had actually or what had possibly occurred. Do you notice how things have really settled down a whole lot since then?
Of course.
So we have a tendency here in America to judge
Yes.
before all the facts are in.
Yes.
Earlier you made a comment, Lou, about standing with the people. I stand with the facts. You know,
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, when it comes to the people, by saying I don't want a military government, I would like the people to make the decisions when it comes to, for all of us, what's best for all of us. I don't just say, hey, he killed a black man and I'm for black people. I really have love for all people. I don't even look at people with color. I look at them by their character. So when I see all these black people getting upset because of Michael Brown, it's like, did you even know what he did? I mean, the guy, if he was innocent and was killed, I completely feel you. But again, where are the facts?
Well, and why? My question is, why was this immediately and automatically a racial issue? I mean,
Because the cop was white and the dude was black.
so that automatically makes it a racial issue?
To these people, yes.
To these people, yeah, that's how their mind is. Again,
And you
it goes
see-
back to the rap music, I want to say.
There's a lot more to prove.
Yes.
If you're talking about a crime involving race, if you're talking about a violation of somebody's civil rights, if you're talking about any of that kind of stuff, there better be more to this than what meets the eye.
Right.
The fact that a white officer shot a black person does not necessarily make it a racial issue. The history of the white officer,
I was about to say that.
and things that he may have said in the past about black people or may not have said about black people. You know, what is his, and this is why it takes so long, you know, when he's sitting around with the guys, are they, you know, what are they talking about? Has there ever been a history of him saying that he doesn't like black people? Those are important. The fact that he shot a black person does not just make it a racial issue.
Right. And the thing that people are still stuck on is the history of law enforcement, which was mostly Caucasian, and the abuse that black people had to go through to gain their rights. And people are still stuck on that. We are still looked down upon. White men still run this world or this country. And I could understand their pain from the years of the family, the grandparents probably embedded in their heads. You know, the white man's dangerous. You know, because they were in law enforcement. And now,
it is the South, right? I mean, this is St. Louis, Missouri.
Which is really prominent.
Again, I think in the last podcast I mentioned that in the surrounding areas there is another police officer who went on Facebook and put in like, yeah, we should put him down like rabid dogs the first night, and he's coming from a county that was 97% white out of 6,000 people. So I mean, race, unfortunately, it's always going to play an issue, kind of like in Anaheim when there was that shooting of Manuel Diaz on Anna Drive. Even the one where the dog Bruno got shot. And but again, the thing is earlier how you were saying about emancipating your child because you can't deal with them. The problem is like they might have issues, and then as soon as their child or their kid is, I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but you know, they're murdered or shot or whatever, you know, they're out here protesting and then they're suing and they're trying to get some money. But then they pull the rap sheet of these people. They've been in and out of prison. They've done drugs. They got robberies. They have all these sorts of things. I'm not saying that justifies being the judge, jury, and executioner. But what I am saying is that like people fail to look at all the facts before they get in. The media plays a huge portrayal on that, and opinions. Nowadays, people are based on opinions and not facts. If you see the major media outlets, I mean, the way they're covering this stuff, I mean, they kind of persuade you to think a certain way. I mean, what do you guys think about the media's portrayal of Ferguson?
I want to end the media. I want to rebuild the media. I think what they're doing is disgusting. Despite, I mean, it's important information to know that there's racist cops out there, but that should be on a department level where they can do something about it if they do something about it. So I can understand how it escalates to the point where it's like, wait, why aren't you guys stopping this racist officer who's making fun of what's going on over here?
He did. They did take action. They even took action on the guy that pointed an AR-15 at somebody and said, "I'll kill you." You know, it's just they were losing their cool. Some of them, but again, it's isolated incidents. If you look at overall all the people in America, it's like you got to look at it. It's one out of how many crimes. 20,000 in a day. I mean, who knows? The percentage is very, very low, and that's what people fail to forget.
The media instigates, man. And
they instigated, just like the East Coast, West Coast with the rap and creating people. They create a lot of hate and animosity, I think.
Dan, you know about the opinion. Eric Gardner and Justin D'Amico thingy that went down? The choking of the dude? It's on here on video right here. You can check it out. The gentleman who was basically choked and brought to the floor, and he had an asthma attack or something, and they were... They put all the officers were on top of him, which stopped him from breathing, and he basically died.
Okay, again, I don't know the facts or I don't know the situation, but you know, you say they were choking him. Were they?
Can I show you the video?
Were they trying to put a sleeper hold on him, or?
Well, they were trying to. He was resisting arrest.
This is a big guy.
Yeah, he was a big guy, and
supposedly, allegedly selling cigarettes.
Break it down for us right here. Here's the video.
Everybody standing there, they told you I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me.
He had been arrested 31 times prior to this, too.
Business, officer.
Well, like the other guy that...
I'm my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time. Please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me, please. Hold on. Don't touch me, please. Do not touch me.
Got his arm wrapped around his neck. Choking him right there. Now they're putting their body weight on his body, and he's crushing him basically. He's saying, "I can't breathe."
Once again, police beating up on people. Back up right here.
Back up, then get on that step.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight.
You get the part where the police appear to be beating somebody up, but you didn't get what led up to that.
Correct.
I mean, that's the same with this video. As far as choking him out, I don't think he was choking him at all, because if he was choking him, you wouldn't be able to say, "I can't breathe." If you're saying I can't breathe, you're breathing fine.
Well, the last guest we had on here was saying that actually that's like the last breath you can actually do is yell something out. And when someone's crushing your stomach, you don't have the ability to expand your stomach.
He was, I mean, my opinion, and I'm not a medical expert.
Yeah, he's a medical expert.
He pretty clearly was saying, "I can't breathe."
Right.
if we fell for that every single time,
I get you.
you know, and
People do
I
that
have
shit all the
fallen
time.
for it,
Yeah.
and I let loose, and the guy gets up and runs away.
Runs away.
So,
Beautiful.
you know,
Oh, man.
it's,
There's actually a
it's,
video.
it's like when somebody's saying, I'm choking. You're not choking. If you can say I'm choking, you're not choking.
But he did have his arm wrapped around his neck at first, and the guy had asthma problems, which could have flared that off.
Well, I
and-
mean, they don't probably know that.
right.
Yeah,
of
course.
You know, the arm around the neck is a technique that you use to get somebody down to the ground. It's not necessarily.
But it's been. They said that you're not allowed to do it anymore. The departments in New York said that.
You really can't say that. I mean, I think what they said is they don't want them using like a bar hold, which is grabbing somebody around the neck and holding on to them. But there's kind of like a sleeper hold where you can actually put somebody out to sleep, and it looks like you're choking them, but
Right.
you're not. You're cutting off the carotid artery, and you're putting them to sleep for like 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he was trying to do. It looked like he was trying to get him to the ground. But again, we're Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we really don't.
Said, "Huh."
If you can get the tape from the second that they started talking to this person,
Yes.
all the way through to when the guy's carted off.
Oh, I've seen it. It's
then
like 10 minutes.
You
No,
can,
he's talking about before. Like,
yeah,
right?
I-
right when it happened. Like, because he said that this dude Gardner, he actually broke up a fight before he got into it with the cops.
okay,
We're talking
yeah.
about way
Yeah,
before
yeah.
someone just said, "Hey, the cops are here. They're harassing this dude. Let's record it."
Yeah.
You want to talk about Dorner? Jump right into it, dude.
Yeah, I just want to touch it on Dorner. I remember when I was reading I always read OC Weekly and OC Register daily, I would say, just because I like to know what's going on in our surrounding areas. Mostly crime, you know, if there's any shootings or who knows what's going on, embezzlement sort of crimes. I like to stay on top of that. But one of them that caught my attention was when I was reading that there was a murder in Irvine. I don't know if you know, but Irvine's like one of the safest cities in the country. When I read about that, I was like, wow, this doesn't sound right. Well, there's usually not, I mean, murders can happen anywhere, but just the way it was execution style, you know, like murdered 2 individuals on the top roof in a Kia Optima. They knew it wasn't a robbery because the female still had the diamond on her hand. And what it was is that it escalated into this ex-cop, Christopher Dorner, just pretty much going haywire against the people that he claimed were responsible for him being fired from the police department. I just want to get some input from Dan. It's just you know, people don't understand, like, there's these crazies out there that police have to put their lives at risk and deal with this guy. This guy actually ended up executing some Riverside police officers as well, so he pretty much had everyone on edge. I just want to get some input from a police officer's point of view of like what's going through their mind when something like this sparks up.
Well, you got to know that all police officers are going to be on the highest of alert. I mean, this is a man who is a former police officer, had former military experience, knows the tactics, had access to weapons, and I had nothing to do with it, but police knew right away that this guy was going to be dangerous, that this
Yes.
guy was going to be a
Yes.
tough one to catch, and he was.
Yeah.
But if you think that everybody's nerves weren't a little bit frazzled, they certainly were. You got this guy. This guy's out on this guy's on a rampage.
Yeah, he's on a revenge mission.
This is a case book, a textbook study of what a rampage is.
It sounded like a movie almost.
How do you deal with crazy people on a daily basis on the beat? People that walk up to you and they're like,
Slow down. Who's been stealing your thoughts?
And they put everything. Did you ever read the old curiosity shop? They made that with John Gilligan.
I mean, we laugh, but that's true. I mean, you
Yeah.
deal with people like that. Maybe not on a day-to-day. I mean, it's somewhere in America they do on a day-to-day basis, but patience. I mean, cops have to have a huge amount of patience. You have to assess rather quickly as to, is this person a danger to me or somebody else?
Yeah.
That's going to be a little different with what you just played than than Dorner, because we
He was
knew
smart.
we knew Dorner. Again, law enforcement knew Dorner was dangerous, and he proved to be, just randomly killing people. Maybe it wasn't random to him, but it seemed random at the time. killing police officers. I mean, this is probably a police officer's biggest nightmare, is having to deal with one of their own.
Yeah.
That knows all the moves, knows all the strategies,
Right.
knows the procedures.
And like Lou was saying when we were off air about, obviously they're on edge because I believe there was 2 pickups that were shot at that they thought it was Dorner, but it wasn't. And I know one of them, if you look at the pictures, you're just like, wow, how did these ladies survive? But again, people need to understand that, this guy was just on a rampage, I mean, obviously there you go. Yeah, that's a picture of it right there.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
Yeah, it was.
But thank God nobody was killed in that. But again, it just shows how on edge you are as a police officer. And, perhaps you need to be a little more disciplined than that. But this guy had the propensity and he showed that he was going to kill. And that he was going to, in fact, he said he was going to kill police officers.
Yeah, his manifesto. He had like a huge manifesto on Facebook that he posted, and I mean, he was just going into conspiracies, his thoughts on politicians, cops, and all sorts of things.
Yeah, like anybody cared, really.
Yeah.
But he carried it out, he was trying to carry it out, which makes him 1,000 times more dangerous than the normal. The regular nutcase that
Oh, that's a good one.
Out.
That's a good one.
Now the way that he what's up?
Click on that link.
Oh,
yeah, that one's a good.
Now the way that he died, they just smoked him out or something like that.
No, they burned him alive.
They burned him out.
Right. I mean, was that legal? I mean, technically speaking, the way that they just burnt the dude down like that.
Well, they didn't mean to burn the place down. That was the when you shoot tear gas or flashbangs or anything into a building, there's a little bit of spark, and it could set things on fire inside the house, and that's what happened. They didn't shoot something in there to intentionally burn down the house.
They wanted to smoke him out so he'd run out and they can get him, right? Even though he had an assault weapon on him, and he can blast.
I don't think they wanted him alive.
Well, I don't think
personally.
I mean, you of course you say you wanted him alive. I mean. Your intention's not necessarily to kill him, but I mean,
they wanted him to burn.
I think they knew what the outcome was going to be, one way or another. But they didn't try to intentionally burn down the house. It's just a consequence of the tactic they used.
I don't think they cared at the point. They were just like, let's get him.
We need to get this guy. Yeah, they didn't want him on loose. And this is what people got to understand. This is what police departments are dealing with. They don't comprehend the extent of the danger of their lives. And I think this isolated case right here. Actually, what was crazy about this is that I think a week after or prior, there was also the kid from Ladera Ranch that gets his shotgun. Murders a call girl in his home and then goes on a rampage on the freeway, and he ends up getting shot by police, I believe, in like Tustin area. But this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of lunatics out there. I mean, personally, I don't own a weapon. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I would defend myself if somebody were to come into my home like that. What's the best advice for people who don't own weapons and they do see some sort of imminent danger? What would be your best advice to them?
It's hard to say without knowing, what's going on. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do to protect yourself and your family, whether that means running away or whether that means, taking some sort of action against the person.
Okay.
I mean, if he's got a gun and you don't, that's not real smart. But
you were going to touch on some subject about knives, I think earlier.
Oh yeah, knives. I mean, because somebody here mentioned, an officer shooting somebody with a knife.
Yeah.
I just want to make it real clear that when I was a police officer, I attended some training specifically having to do with people with knives. And an expert came in. He was a martial arts expert and put us through a little scenario. He had a plastic knife with him and stood like 10 feet from us, maybe even 8 feet. And we didn't have any ammo in our guns, obviously. But he said, okay, I want you, as soon as you see me move, I want you to draw and fire. So from 8 feet away, nobody could do it before he was on him. From 10 feet away, nobody could do it. Wow. It took all the way back to 22 feet before anybody could draw and fire before he got to them. One person out of like 35 could do it from 22 feet away. So he said, well, so this is the standard then. 22 feet is how far somebody with a knife can still kill you even though you have a gun. And then he said, okay, take the gun out of your holster and point it at me. And I think he was 15 feet away and was still able to beyond the officer before he was able to fire a round with his gun out of his holster. So, when people say, well, he had a knife, why did you have to shoot him? That's why.
A knife is lethal. And now with that background that you're telling me, now that video makes a lot more sense to me. They did have their guns drawn, but I mean, he was probably, I want to say 10 feet. I mean, that's pretty close. And I mean, it was a little bit unlevel, so if he jumped, he could probably leap at them.
Not to mention throw the knife.
Throw. Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
We don't know what the expertise of that person is with a
he could be a ninja.
Weapon.
Exactly.
I mean, more than likely they're not, but we don't know that. So we have to.
You can't assume that, though.
You have to assume that he is.
Yeah, exactly. For your own
so
protection.
Again, the thing with knives is if the guy's 500 feet away and with a knife, I think you're pretty safe.
Okay.
But if he's 15 feet away with a knife, not so much.
And some people would argue, like sometimes I'd bring this up, like, well, why don't they use tasers or rubber bullets and I guess one of the things would be maybe if they're like Rodney King was on PCP, where you just have this incredible strength. I guess that would be an argument. But what do they usually say? Hey, you know what? If you're gonna use deadly force, or I mean, what's the training behind it? What's in the police officer's mind at that point?
Well, it depends on every situation. But tasers are only good from a certain distance away.
Okay.
The strings on those, or the cords, or whatever you call them, they only go like 15 feet. So if the guy's 20 feet away, you're
and also if you gotta hit the guy,
and then you got to hit him.
Yeah.
And the further away, the harder it is. So I mean, there's all kinds of variables. Rubber bullets, not every police department has rubber bullets available to them, or if they do, it's not on your person.
Okay.
So we used to have them in the car, but when you're in a situation like this, you can't call timeout and go back to the car. So I mean, So you use what you have available to you at the time, which is you always have your gun. You have a baton, but you don't even want to bring a baton to a knife fight.
Yeah.
What about punching? When somebody is not cooperating, do you think a police officer should be able to pound somebody to get them to submit?
No.
You don't think so?
No, not for that reason.
But
not to get them to talk.
I'm
not
sure
to get
the frustration builds up where, somebody who's on a high-speed pursuit, the police are chasing them, dodging and weaving down the freeway, chasing the guy, hopping over fences, slipping, falling, getting cut up. You finally catch this guy on the floor. You just want to.
I think that's why it's a case by case. I mean.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, prior to, like, this technology right here, I'm sure they got in there a couple hits.
Has a police officer ever hit somebody unnecessarily while taking them into custody? Of course. Should it be practiced and should it be approved of every single time? Of course not.
Yeah, I hear of a lot of deputy abuse in the jails.
There may be, but
But then again, we don't know what the
you're asking the
scenario
wrong
is.
guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's one thing I want to ask you.
They're in jail for a reason.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to ask you, why do they separate races and like the gays? They'll all divide them. Doesn't that just bring them out to society to be more racist towards other colors because they divide them? Shouldn't they force them to get along? You guys are gonna get along. You can do what we say. Otherwise, you're gonna be standing in that corner all day long and you're not gonna do nothing. Get them to the point where it's like, we understand, we're going to cooperate, we're going to come back to society and make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think jail is the place to implement that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that they segregate white and black inmates everywhere. I mean, that might be a case in some instances.
Some places, there's a lot of race, right? So I'm thinking like the level 4s, like maybe Lancaster, Folsom, again, like the thing is what's funny to me, this is I guess it shouldn't be funny, but out here in the streets, you have all these different gangs, Hispanic gangs, but once they're in prison, boom, they're buddies. They're all run with the Sureños or Norteños, they're like a super gang. So all that beef that's on the streets dies off, and now the shot callers are the Mexican mafia. And it's just crazy how this whole mentality really is. And it kind of hits close to home. I know people doing 25 to life right now on 3 strikes. I know people who've been in jail for DUIs, multiple DUIs. I've been to different facilities from level 4, maximum level 4, visiting people. I see it. It's a trip, and like you say, if you're in jail, you're in prison, then, you're probably not going to get the brightest crayons of the box. You're probably really not going to get that. But one thing I do want to touch in on scandals is there was actually one of the deputies at the one of the jails here in Orange County. I believe her name was Jennifer Tamara McLean. She's actually an African American deputy. Was having sex with a white supremacist inmate that was there, which is kind of a trip. I don't know. There's a lot of corruption going on too. Have you ever heard of any stories or anything that was kind of like making your department look bad, or just in general making police look bad at your time when you were a police officer?
Well, like I said, if we found I'll give you this much. I was in a fairly small department, so I mean, if we saw something like that, we wanted to take care of it.
Okay.
You know, you've probably heard the term, police your own.
Correct.
And we did that.
Very cool.
We didn't.
Yeah.
But now, when you're talking about an agency that has 5,000 cops,
Yeah.
LAPD has what, 7, 8,000, 10,000? I don't know.
A lot.
It's difficult to root out the bad ones, and there are going to be bad police officers probably in every department. Even if it's 1/10 of 1%, I mean, how many would that be in LA?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
In a small department like I worked, it was easy to find those folks. There was maybe one in my lifetime, and we got rid of them. But in LAPD, there might be more. So how do you root them out?
Yeah.
It's going to take officers snitching off officers, which officers don't
It's
like to do.
not going to happen.
But
I wouldn't say it's not going to happen. It's just that it's got to be something severe enough.
Yeah.
For
it's kind of like
to
the whole
But
Rampart district.
It could be escalated, though, by the person that you're pulling over, like we were talking about earlier, a-holes and stuff.
Yeah.
Then when you pull somebody over, let's talk about educating people out there that might be listening. What would you really like them to do to make sure that it's even Steven, that everybody goes home happy, and that even though they might get a ticket,
they might get a warning.
For everyone's safety, when you pull somebody over, what's the best thing that they can do for your safety and to make you feel comfortable as a police officer?
Just, I hate to say this because we talked about it earlier, but just use some common sense.
What's that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you get pulled over and you know that the officer is going to be approaching your car. Best thing to do is minimally, you want to just sit there, put your hands on the steering wheel, and roll down your window and just have a conversation with the police officer.
Right.
Don't automatically assume. I think I was telling you guys this during the break that I wasn't a big ticket giver. When I pulled somebody over, most of the time, my intent was to give them a warning. But what dictated whether they got a ticket or not was their attitude when I got up to the car.
Yeah.
And if it was right off the bat, it was, don't you have anything better to do? Blah 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 blah. Yeah. License and registration. But if we had a conversation and I said, hey, you went through that stop sign back there at about 10 miles an hour, and they say, yeah, I probably did. I'm kind of in a hurry to get to work. Blah blah blah. 9 times out of 10, I'd give them a warning and let them go.
And for the police out there that are listening, know that us people are not always trying to piss off the police, because I had a ticket for an unsafe turn, and I could have completely avoided it by doing what you were saying, having a better attitude. However, a vehicle behind me honked while I was making a U-turn, and an officer who was working at a SWAT meet heard the honk, comes over and looks at me and stops my car, gets in front of my vehicle after I made a U-turn and says, "What are you doing?" And I was so upset that car honked at me because I didn't do a grandma turn. I didn't stop and then slowly turn. I was smooth. I made that U-turn without no problems. And I kind of got upset because he honked at me. So when the officer asked me, why did you, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm making a turn. What are you doing? And he's like, pull over. So I pull over, license and registration, and I got a ticket because of that, even though I won it. It took a lot of time out of my life, guys. So just cooperate with the police. They have a tough gig. Some of them are jerks. Some of them are cool. Know that they're always on edge because you never know. Hey, they go up to a car, some guy on 3 strikes, got a gun in his car, pow. Policeman dead.
I've seen videos where routine traffic stop, and I think it was a father and his son where they were on the intent, very anti-government, and the cop goes up there, they open up the side of the van, he has an AK-47, starts spraying the cop. Like this is crazy. This is what we're dealing with, and this is across America. This isn't just in California. This is everywhere. It's just in America, we have the Second Amendment right to bear arms. Most countries don't. I think a lot of people, they forget all the good stuff that we do have in this country. Again, you got to be responsible. Personally, I don't own a weapon like I stated previously, but I have gone to a gun range. I've shot quite a few different guns, and it's an interesting experience. The first time I shot a gun, my heart just started racing. It was just like, wow, like this is very powerful. Like this is what people use sometimes to like end other people's lives. Like it's pretty intense. I know my wife was just like, I don't want to. She didn't even want to finish the round because she was just like, no, it's too much. And it's just I don't know. People gotta. I think first they gotta get knowledge. before they get weapons, because I think it just,
It's
like
a
you're
tool.
saying, just communicating,
Yeah.
could save you a lot of a time, like Lou was saying earlier.
Yep, that's true. And I think people don't understand that. They don't want to learn how to shoot a gun. They're afraid of guns. It's a tool, and it can be used by the wrong person, but it's like a vehicle. You have to train for it. And I think people should be able to own weapons in their homes and in their vehicles if they're law-abiding citizens. If you have a criminal record, I don't think you should be able to have one. I think if you are a law-abiding citizen, you have the right to defend yourself. I'm not talking about machine guns, but I'm talking about just a regular gun,
Grenades.
being able to defend yourself.
And one thing I wanted to bring back earlier too was about when they stop people. It goes back to the clothing too. A lot of people used to wear like really, I don't know if you remember, probably like in the 90s, late 80s, the real baggy clothes. And I remember asking like my uncle, I was like, yeah, what's up with this trend? He's like, well, one of the main reasons they do it is because they could carry a shotgun, or they could carry weapons, and you can't really identify or see the form of it. And I was like, oh yeah, that really does make sense, and it's just your clothing, and that's why sometimes you're gonna get profiled. I mean, as far as racial profiling goes, I mean, I know I was profiled for a while. Again, I went to high school in Irvine, and I remember I got pulled over 4 times in 1 week. I got pretty upset because every time I got pulled over, the cops were like, do you have weed? And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? But I ended up going to the police department, and I was like, hey, who's in charge here? I want to talk to somebody. And I wasn't very aggressive. I was just like more like, hey, you know what? And finally somebody came out. I was like, hey man, I was like, you guys pulled me over 4 times in 1 week. You guys know my car. I live here. I go to school here. You have cameras on every stoplight. I was like, what's the problem? Every time you pull me over, I have all my stuff. I'm all, what is the problem? You guys keep harassing me. His response was this. He's like, well, if you see 3 white guys in Santa Ana on Minnie Street, do you think they're going to get pulled over? And I was like, wow, you just pretty much proved my point that you're profiling me. And he just kind of stayed quiet after that. But after that incident, I didn't get pulled over again. So sometimes you got to speak your mind. You can't be scared of police. You can't be scared. I've always been outspoken. Again, I felt like I was getting harassed at that point, But
Right.
after that, I made a point. And, it is what it is. I mean, I've had good encounters with police. I've had negative encounters. But again, it just
And I
depends.
keep thinking about the people on Facebook because I see a lot of posts of people that are anti-police, and I could understand why, but we have to have order and liberty at the same time, and
You
they
can't have anarchy.
they clash, And I wanted to read a little thing off the book because I have some books from college going into politics about the criminal procedures, which is a branch of the American Constitution, law concerned with the power of the state to maintain an orderly society and the rights of citizens and residents to live in freedom from government interference with their liberty. Criminal procedures is based on the United States Constitution, which went into effect 1789, and several amendments to the Constitution. The most important amendment of this subject are the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th amendments. I don't even know if people know there are amendments out there. The Bill of Rights is ratified in 1791, and the 14th Amendment ratified shortly after the Civil War in 1868. Equally important are the decisions of the United States Supreme Court interpreting the brief constitutional text. For the most part, the study of constitutional criminal procedure is the study of the Supreme Court's opinions. That's horrible. Should we allow a small group of like 9 people in the judicial branch to decide what eventually trickles down to all of society?
Well, that's what the court system is for. I mean, that's how it was created 200 and something years ago. We may not agree with the court decisions, but that's the way it's set up now. And unless somebody's willing to change the Constitution, which
Only they can.
literally takes an act of Congress,
Right.
They don't like to work. I don't know if you've noticed lately.
no, they like to take vacations, but
Craziness.
Yeah.
but that's the way it's set up, Lou. And do we change it? I say no. Trust me, I don't agree with most of the decisions the Supreme Court makes. But
What about our president?
But I've. Do you really want to get into that?
That's a whole nother show.
But I swear. I mean, I abide by our Constitution, so therefore I abide by the decisions that they make. However, there are times where I think they abuse their authority.
Right.
Like anybody else that's in government, they can abuse their authority as well. I think when the people vote for something, and the people have spoken, I don't know that the government or not the government, but the court should be able to come in and change that.
Overturn it.
And what that's based on the opinion of 9 people instead of based on the opinion of the consensus of people who voted.
I have a clip here that I took from a video I saw that was really interesting. It was a woman who was born in Austria, and she got to listen to Hitler's speeches, and she compares him. Let's listen in real quick.
Now, you might ask, how could a Christian nation, almost 100% Catholic, to elect a monster like Hitler? The truth is, at the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician.
What do you think about that?
Well, I wasn't around, but it's probably true. I'm not familiar with Hitler's works before he became who we know now what he was. But I'm assuming that she's accurate in her description. That I guess what she meant by that is
they're liars.
Just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, liars.
They're persuasive speakers.
I think liars are a good word, but I mean, they're
deceitful.
They're propagandists, I guess, is the best way to say it, and probably most politicians are, whether you're liberal or conservative or moderate or whatever. Most of what comes out of their mouth is propaganda.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe any politician nowadays. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But when they speak, I don't know. I constantly scratch my head at some of the things they're saying, and you say that can't be true. That's, but still, what do you do about it? We elected these people, and we have to live with them until we can hopefully elect them out.
Yes.
That's horrible.
I want to read something really quick. I was actually going through the headlines of articles for this show, and we touched on Obama earlier, and he was just saying that they caught a cop on camera saying he doesn't follow the Constitution because Obama doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, and we can get into a whole new discussion on that, but sometimes our government gets into things that they shouldn't. This whole thing that happened in Missouri, I'm totally against our federal government getting involved the way they did. It was a local issue.
They just made it bigger than what it was.
Well, not only that, but it sets a dangerous precedent.
Yes, it does. It does.
Now, every time something like that happens, is Eric Holder going to go there? And I'm not sure that he made it any better, quite frankly.
The same guy that was selling military-grade weapons to Mexican cartels.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good point. Very good point.
Man, it's a double standard.
But it's setting
crazy.
a negative precedent. It's setting a precedent that now every time something like that happens, the state or the city that happens is going to expect the federal government to get involved. And it's not the first time it's happened since Obama's been president either.
I think it's giving ammunition to all the conspiracists too. Like, hey, the militarization of the police, the tanks on our soil, this, that.